Thanks for tuning in to the Big Money Investor Show with Jim Ingersoll, where we talk about the best strategies for you to create cash flow and long-term wealth. Investing like the very top investors. Visit us online at www.bigmoneyinvestor.com and enjoy today's show.
Welcome to the Investor Success Podcast. This show is created exclusively for investors seeking lasting cash flow, increased net worth, and success investing in real estate the right way. My name is Jim Ingersoll, and I get to be your host for this podcast today, and we have an awesome show ahead for you. I'm also the founder of the Investor Success Mastermind, where I get to help investors and real estate entrepreneurs grow their businesses. And you can learn more about what we do at the InvestorSuccessMastermind.com. That's actually the whole topic of the podcast today. We created this podcast to help inspire you and to motivate you to invest in real estate the right way and enjoy the many, many benefits of building an investing business and getting it done the right way. So let me tell you a little bit about my friend today, who's our very special guest. Tom Olson and I are both from a small town in western New York, and we grew up in this small town called Jamestown, New York, where it's very, very cold in the winter, and we probably get 200 inches of snow a year. But we didn't know each other growing up. We just met each other over the last probably 18 months, and we met each other at the at David Phelps Freedom Founders Mastermind, and when we were comparing notes, we were shocked that we were both from the same small town. But besides being from the same small town, Tom and I actually have a lot of things in common, including real estate. But at this point, Tom is working in the greater Chicago area. He's been in business for over a decade, like myself. He's bought and sold over 1,000 houses. That's a massive amount of transactions. In addition to looking for deals, he also offers some real estate coaching for new investors, as well as flip management program for those looking for profit, but none of the hassle, which is really awesome. Tom has been in the construction industry as well, with a construction company for over the last 15 years. And in the last decade, he's branched into real estate. He's done over 1,000 complete buy and sells, done high-end rehabs on over 250 of those houses, and he's looking to double that in the next few years. He and his partner, Wayne Schaefer, also have a wholesaling business where they wholesale over 300 deals a year. But what I really like about Tom is his core values. At the core, he set all the business stuff aside. He's got a great family, and he loves to help people all the time. He is an absolute giver. He's a very strong Christian person, a man of great faith. It's another thing he and I both have in common, and he believes in sharing those blessings with those who are less fortunate, which I love about him. So, Tom, welcome to the Investor Success Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jim. I really appreciate you having me on this. It's really interesting, you talk about Jamestown, and that was just such a weird, odd thing that we found about each other on Facebook one day when you were talking to somebody that was flipping a house in Jamestown, and me and you were 500 miles away from each other, probably both thinking at the same time, what, you're flipping a house in Jamestown? And just didn't seem like it worked. I'm not sure if it actually worked out for the guy or not, but it doesn't seem like the place that I'd be wanting to flip. But that was really interesting, and that's really cool.
And I know who that is. It was Gary Proctor, and Gary was the stepbrother of a really good friend of mine, and I knew Gary growing up, and he and I used to collect baseball cards together and talk sports and all this stuff. And when I saw that he and I both ended up in real estate, I was shocked. And I know he does a lot of wholesaling in that area, but what's cool about real estate, Tom, is it does work in rural areas. It does work in smaller towns. You just got to find your right niche, right? Because you guys also work in Chicago, but you also work in some rural areas.
Oh, absolutely. We do wholesale a ton of deals out in the middle of the country. And what's really good about doing deals out in the middle of the country is those people have cash. Cash is king in real estate, and it's great to be able to get quick transactions done with people and make some money and move on. But yeah, you throw up a couple stand-it signs, and you get Farmer Joe down the road, and you get somebody else that and they end up fighting over the deal half the time sometimes. and they're buying it for their kids or whatever. But yeah, we do a ton of deals in rural markets.
So that's one of the cool things, because there's like all these different asset classes and all these different types of property you can go into, and I just was thinking about that while we were talking about Jamestown. I can't believe we're both from the same small city, and actually our houses, I don't think we're that far apart. And here we meet each other. You're from the Chicago area. I live in Richmond, Virginia. We meet each other in Dallas, Texas. Go figure, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the beauty of masterminding too, because you get to meet and really create great relationships with people from all over the place that can help you succeed. And I know you and I are both very much committed to personally participating in masterminds, and they're a great way to grow your business.
Absolutely.
And that sort of leads me into this discussion today, because we're going to talk about not so much going from a hobby to a business, but from like a solopreneur to creating a business. How do you connect those dots? What type of people do you need? What kind of systems, processes, mindset, goals, and all of that? So, Tom, you've done this with a couple of different businesses. So why don't you sort of start back maybe to the beginning of one of your businesses? You could take your wholesaling business or your construction business and talk a little bit about how you made some of that transition.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this is mindset, and a lot of this is kind of going to go back to stuff that we don't really think about belongs in our business. But it's actually probably more core to your business and more important to your business than learning how to wholesale a house or learning how to fix and flip or construction, or actually learning the skills of a business, is to set up a good structure and a good system to run your business in. And a lot of times, solopreneurs, they get out and they let's just say you were to start wholesaling properties. And I've got a buddy of mine, and he's going to make really good money this year. I mean, really, he's probably going to make $300,000 or $400,000 this year wholesaling properties. And I mean, he thinks he's flying high, but he doesn't really have a business. I mean, he's got a linear business, meaning he buys, he sells, it's over. And he doesn't have systems in place that are really going to sustain him long term. He's going to be happy year one, he's going to be really happy year two, he'll be really happy year three. And then the other people that started a business in year one are going to start catching up to him. In year one, somebody that starts a business might only make $50,000, or they might lose money. They might work 18 hours a day and lose money that year because they put it all on the line and they're reinvesting all their profits or any money that would be profit back into the business. You hear so many times of the super successful people, like Mark Cuban on Shark Tank. He talks about, sleeping in his car and working 18 hours a day and not having any money, but look at where he's at now. It's because he started as a business and he put the right structure and the right system in place to be able to make it work. And, so there's two types of main businesses. There's a linear and a circular type of business. You've got to make sure that you have the right mind shift and the right focus on what kind of business you want. Do you want a business that is one and done and you have to keep creating a new customer every single time you have a product or every single time you have a deal? Or do you want a business that's circular, that's going to be able to have people come back over and over and over again? If you think of the companies that are super ultra successful, they're all circular businesses. You've got Apple. Well, what did Apple do? They started with an iPhone. And then what did they do? Well, they had the iPad. And then you got an iMac. And then now you got the Apple Watch. And then after that, then they came out with iPhone 2 and iPhone 3 and 5 and 6. And how many of us that have iPhones have bought 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever of their and then now we're hooked up to our TVs with Apple TV. And
right.
They've got a very circular business where the customer comes back over and over and over again. So that's just kind of something that I think everybody should think about in their own business. It in a way it sounds simple, but it's also so complicated thinking about your customer on that. As far as an actual going from that solopreneur to being a business, I think there's some key tools that you need to put in place. And maybe you already talked about this with the gentleman that you had told me that you had talked about before.
No,
but I think the most important thing is to figure out why you're in business. And I know people talk about your why, and it's kind of that, but it's almost like a statement. It's almost like your marching orders. And as you build your business, everybody in your company should know what your core focus is. For our company, our core focus is doing good work to support God's work. We believe in being a conduit, not a bucket. We believe that the reason why we have is to give. It's not just to have a big pile of cash at the end of the day. So ours is very unique, and it's different than say Nike's would be to crush Adidas. That's their core focus was when they created their core focus and their core mission. Some other companies are to be the best, coaching program for this specific niche or whatever the case is. But I think that's the first thing that you've got to step back. And sometimes it takes a little while to do that, but sometimes it just takes getting away from the office and just focusing on what does this look like for your business? What is the whole purpose for your business, and why are you in business? Once you figure that out, everything that you do in your business ought to be to support that mission. Without that mission, you don't really have a purpose, and you don't. It's funny because I was in Collective Genius, which is one of the best, I think, real estate masterminds a couple of weeks ago, and a guy stood up, and he's crushing it. He's got a huge company, but he stood up and said, "I'm really struggling with this. I don't know why I do what I do," and I actually kind of felt sorry for him, because I felt like that's what gets me up in the morning. That's what makes me go to work and do the things I do when I don't know and when I don't want to. It's what keeps you going. So I think, again,
what you're talking about ties right into what I talked with Trevor, who founded Carrot, about, because Carrot is hugely successful. I mean, they got huge amounts of revenue and grew really fast over the last 3 or 4 years. But he told me, Tom, there was like a point where he was hitting all of his financial goals, and he had plenty of money in the bank, and he couldn't spend it all, basically. But he was losing his reason to get out of bed every day, just exactly like you said. And he had to really, really dig deep to go out there and find a reason. And part of that for him turned out to be pouring into other entrepreneurs and helping them succeed, and pulling together a co-op and some different things. But, it's a good point to just, and Tom, Walter Wolford. I mean, Walter hits me over the head with this all the time. Why, Jim? Why? Why do you want to do that? Why? And it is such a crushing question. It's so easy to blow off, but it's so critical to your success. Why do you want to do it? That's why I like when, I think it's Darren Hardy who said, first time I heard him say it, he said, your why should make you cry. And I sort of liked it because it sort of rhymes, but it's an important point. So I'm glad you were making it. And I like the way you said the conduit versus the bucket. That was good.
I mean, that's for me. That's my why, but I actually feel like people sometimes don't make their why big enough. And if you make it all about yourself, it's not big enough. And to me, your why, in order to have a why big enough, it has to be about others, and it has to be about something that's bigger than you. And that's what I feel like is really missing. Now, I shouldn't say missing, because you have a lot of companies that is what their focus is. But I think having a mission that's bigger than you will make you strive to do bigger and better things and to help others along the way.
So let me ask you this. We're talking about linear versus circular businesses, and you compared to Apple, which is great. Such an incredibly innovative company. I'm so hooked on Apple. But how would that relate back to like a real estate business or a wholesaling or a fix and flip business? I know for me, like when I was wholesaling a lot, I wasn't wholesaling like you guys are, but we did over 100 wholesale deals a year. And so I started to figure out what else could I provide to my repeat customers. How did you guys see that transition from linear to circular?
And well, I'll be honest with you, there's part of our business that struggles with this as well, because we'll get a house out in the middle of nowhere, and I can't really service that customer all over again. I mean, there's a hard time when there's only 60 houses within 3 miles. It's hard to be able to ensure that I'm going to be able to service that customer again. So we actually are. I mean, honestly, we do have programs. I mean, programs like our Active Turnkey program is a very circular business model. A turnkey business where you're pumping out a product over and over and over again, and you're selling to the investors. that's a lot more circular. A fix and flip, really it's linear. It is. I mean,
it's one and done.
Yeah, exactly.
It's completely transactional, and it's one and done.
Right.
So
exactly.
Tell us a little bit about your turnkey. How does that work, and how has that become circular? Because there's probably people listening wondering how that's a little different.
Oh, absolutely. So I buy rentals myself, and actually, if you think about it, rentals is a circular type of thing too. And you're getting income on it over and over and over again. But basically, I have a program that we started actually this year. We've done 32 deals with 17 investors. I've got many repeat customers already. I got one guy that's already bought 10 properties from me, one guy that's bought 4 properties from me, 3, and it just kind of goes down the list there. But basically, I created the whole program for them to want to come back, and it's basically the whole model of buying, fixing up, so buy, rehab, rent, refi, and repeat. So that you have that repeat model in there, and that's kind of what I teach them that they want to do. So if somebody starts with $100,000 and they pay all cash for a house, they're going to pay cash for the house, and then they're going to pay the contractor to fix up the house that my construction company, because I have both sitting here in house. Right. And then we believe in rent to own and lease options in our area, which I think is a whole another conversation for another day maybe. My investor gets that money, and then they refi the property and get 70% of their money, actually 80-90% of their money back, and then it gives them enough money to do a whole nother deal again. So I basically created a system that gives my investor an incentive to buy from me over and over and over again. And I put all the pieces together for them. It's a lot of hard work, but it's working for me extremely well. And I think in the end, the investors are super happy. I get nothing but praise. And it's growing like wildflower, like wildflowers. It's insane. A couple of meetings we go to with some of the guys that I've done these for, like there's a guy named Eric, and he's like, I'm telling everybody to go do Tom flips. He keeps calling them Tom flips. I'm like, this, it's not a flip. This is a rental. So it's like everybody else, then it's circular, not only because the customer comes back, but also because it's so easy to get referrals from those people if you offer them a good product that they can come back to. And so that would be, a great example, I think, of a circular.
And I love the way he calls it a Tom flip. I like that. I think that's actually good branding and marketing. So if somebody's out there on the West Coast, like you and I know, there's people in our own mastermind that live in San Francisco that are now buying in Indiana because the cash flow is phenomenal and the equity's good. Tell us about a typical turnkey rental, and then tell us how somebody could contact you if they want to jump in on one, because you provide boots on the ground for people from the West Coast and all over the country that are doing this.
Yes, absolutely. And so sure, I don't mind them giving me a call on my cell phone, 219-742-7957, or email me at tolson@goodsuccess, and I can definitely give them some more information about that. As far as looking about what a typical deal would look like, I can use some really round numbers for you. I always have examples or performas to be able to show people, but let's just use some round numbers. Let's just say I have a house that would be that after repaired appraised value would be about $100,000. I'm typically selling that house for say $60,000, and it typically is going to need about $15,000 worth of work. Now maybe it's $50,000 and maybe it's $25,000 worth of work. But regardless of that, I don't want my investors to be in these properties more than $75,000 for that deal. Now that exact same house will probably rent between $1,000 and $1,100 a month, which, as you know, in your market is probably pretty similar to what you can get, but maybe even a little bit better than what I've heard from most people around the country. I'm selling them these properties, and I'm making money as a wholesaler to them when I'm selling them the properties. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm proud of that, actually. I'm getting the house for cheaper than that, but I've put in all the work. We put in 6,500 offers a week to get these properties. And, can somebody else go out and do all that work and get the properties and maybe be all in 70%? Absolutely. But I mean, I'm cutting off so much work from somebody and putting all the pieces together for them. So that'll happen. And then, as soon as we close the construction company, well, actually the property management company takes over, gets utilities turned on. And then the construction company works with the investor. They get weekly updates. They get pictures as the progress of the rehab goes on. And then as soon as that's done, the property manager steps back in and starts marketing for a renter. We also, at that point, also want to try to get them to get their refinance done at that point, because I think it's better to get the refi done before the tenant's actually in the property. And then they work on that. We get the house appraised. We get the house rented for them. And then the property manager works with the new owner, just like you would a turnkey property at that point. So, from then on out, with managing tenants and so on and so forth. So typically what the numbers look like is somebody's going to be into a house all in around $75,000. When they go to refi, they're going to be able to refi 70%, so that's $70,000. So they're going to be into this deal about $5,000. And then what I teach and preach is the whole lease option, which gives them at least a minimum of $3,000 non-refundable option fee from the tenant. And with that, now you're only into a property $2,000. And, your cash on cash return, which most turnkey providers love to spout that 15-20% is awesome. In my program is hundreds of percent sometimes. And I love seeing it when my investors are making infinity returns on their money, where sometimes the bank is actually even paying them to do these deals. And I mean, so the cap rates are about 10-11%-ish, the actual cap rate on them. But the cash on cash is just phenomenal. And then, like I said, they can repeat over and over and over again and basically use the same money to buy houses over and over again.
Right. So it's a win-win for everybody. You talked about the volume of offers that you make. Can you tell, because I'm sure there are people listening right now saying, did I hear that right? Does he really make that many offers? How many offers do you guys make a month, and how does that work?
Sure. We put in between 5,500 and 6,500 offers a week. So, yes, that's about 2,000 to 2,500 offers a month. We get about 20 offers accepted per week. So we are a business that runs on extreme failure. We fail 99.975 or something % of the time, and we're proud of that. So, so it's one of those weird, ultimate fail type propositions. But I've got 9 people in my office. It's their full-time job to find properties, and then I've got 3 VAs that are actually doing the paperwork and putting in the offers. And so that's how we do it. If you want more information on that, then I would tell you to come to my 2-day belief retreat.
Yeah, let's talk. Okay, so that's almost 1,000 offers a day. But in the belief,
yeah, you're right.
I mean, it's 500 to 1,000 offers a day. I mean, that's a
lot.
lot,
Right.
But you have several people doing that for you. So tell everybody about the belief retreat and how they can connect to find more info on that.
Sure, absolutely. We're having so for the last couple of years, we've just invited people to come to our office, and we've just asked them to just come see what we're all about. A lot of times we'll learn from them, they'll learn from us, But what we keep getting and hearing out of it is that when people come to our office, they know that there's people out there doing 300 deals. They know that there's people out there doing more deals than them, and they know that there's other businesses that have great culture, but they've never actually been invited inside to come see it. And when me and Wayne were actually learning and trying to grow our business from that point where we were starting out at 40 deals per year, we did the same thing. We went around the country and went to different people's offices and I wanted to see what it looked like. Now, we didn't actually get what we're offering, where we actually spend 2 days with you and go over, different department levels, have you, sit in on a sales training meeting, have you sit in on a morning huddle, have you sit in on, some of the other cultural things that we do to help build a great team and have a good culture in our team. But, and then also sit with the different department heads of the company. But we didn't get to do that, but we saw what it looked like. And that's all I needed. And I know there's got to be people out there that are like me, that they know there's more out there, but they just don't know what it looks like. I believe that if people can come and see what it looks like, you're not going to necessarily leave with systems. I'm not going to promise you to leave with systems, but I think what people will leave with is the belief that if they can do it, I can do it too. And in my opinion, that's one of our core values is belief. And I actually think that belief is the first step of anything that you do in life. You've got to believe in it first. If you don't, like a sale, for instance, if you don't believe in it, you're never going to sell it. A sale is just a transfer of belief from you to the person that's trying to buy. So that's why we call it the 2-day belief retreat. Basically come see how a company does 300 deals a year while we do it, sit in our office, actually be able to get, that type of level of, and how, being able to touch and feel and smell how that looks like. I actually talked to a guy at Collective Genius who's charging $45,000 for the same thing and made me rethink my price point on this. But, I strongly believe in this, and I really do want to, part of good success to me is shared success. And I think I would like to share this with as many people as I can.
And so if they go to goodsuccessacademy.com, they'll be able to pick up more info on that, right?
Absolutely.
And Tom, let me say, it's really nice to have you in our Investor Success Mastermind as well. You're a huge contributor, and you're being willing to host our next live mastermind coming up at the end of July is really appreciated. So we're looking forward to huddling up at your place and learning together. So thank you for that. All right, so we talked about linear and circular. We talked about turnkey rentals and making a lot of offers. What else is on your mind when you make the transition from like a solo entrepreneur into a business?
Absolutely. Thanks for getting back on track for me because we got to focus there a little bit. So, really the first thing you've got to do is, like I said, is get what's your core focus, your mission in life. I think the next part is what are your core values? And we kind of just talked about some of that. And our core values are belief, strong work ethic, integrity, and go-giver. And that really goes right along with our whole core focus is like we believe, number one, that we do a good work to support God's work. And it's like we know we have to work hard. We know we have to perform on the back end, and what we say we do, that's the integrity part of that. And then go give. So we have so we can give. So they really, our core focus and core values really play into each other. And I try to, everything that you do in your business ought to go back to your core focus and core values. Those things are so important. If you have a small team and you're trying to grace to a large team, the way you would do that is you would go off site and you would say, hey, what do I like about, pick 3 people and you say, what are the top 20 things I like about these 3 people? And then just narrow it down to what do you think your culture should be? What are those things in your business that you believe you want to have as your core values? So that's the next part of this. And that's the next step that you want to,
getting the right people in the right seats.
Yes. I'm talking about putting some structure in your business. And your core values and your core focus, that will determine if somebody's a right person or not for you. So you've got to, if somebody doesn't fit in those core values and they're not on the same path with you as far as your core focus, you may not want that person on your team because they're always going to be going in a different direction. So those are some couple tools I would suggest. The next one is, again, we've talked about a big, core focus. But what is, determine to yourself, what is your big, huge, goal in life? So your core focus isn't a goal. Your core focus is more or less a mission. But your target, your 10-year target or your big, goal in life is what do you want to accomplish in 10 years? If you could do this in the next 10 years, what do you think that would be? And then from there, you're just putting in some more tools in place. You want to create a marketing strategy and all that kind of stuff. And we can get into some of that stuff, and you can back out your 10-year plan to your 3-year plan to your 1-year plan, and then put in quarterly goals and then do a weekly type scorecard like we do. And we can get into some stuff like that. But I would prefer to get into
let me
more
go back.
of the
Let me go back to people for a minute, because I know as you transition from being like an independent entrepreneur, solopreneur, and you want to go to a business, the natural progression is to start to use virtual assistants, and then to go from there to employees. So can you talk a little bit about those steps? Because I know there's people on this call right now that are trying to figure that particular step out. And make sure that they always worry they've got enough cash flow, that they're ready for those steps and everything's in place.
I love VAs, but I think that model actually supports the solopreneur model way more than it actually supports the entrepreneur model. I honestly believe that I think people that go that route are gonna hit a ceiling at some point, and I think maybe that's what I'm talking about is more or less when they hit that ceiling. But what I would say and what I would suggest is to create an accountability chart. It's different than an org chart. It's different than that a little bit, but it's more or less understanding that in business there are three core things that have to happen. Number one, you've got to have sales and marketing. So somehow you've got to be able to have sales and marketing. Number two, you have to have operations. Somehow in the back end, something's happening. So whatever happening in your business, whether you're making widgets or whether you're rehabbing houses or whatever the case is, you have an operations type function. And then you also have finance. You have to make sure that you track your money. You have to have an admin part of finance that does tracking, and you have to have all that in place. And at the beginning, when you start a business, and then you also have to have a leader. As you grow, that leadership normally transitions into a two-person leadership type of a role where you have a visionary that's out like selling the huge relationships, and then you have a general manager or a CEO that's the person back at the office actually running everything, that is almost like a general manager of a baseball team that says, I get to make the scorecard today. I create who is in the game today, and I make the final decisions. And they have, most of the time, they're not even the owner. Most of the time, the owner is the person that's the visionary out, speaking with other people, creating 20 or 30 new ideas a week, that's creating relationships and selling big profits and creating big, huge relationships. And then the next person is that one that tells that visionary to say, sometimes they have to tell them, no, we can't do that right now. That general manager is in charge of the profit and loss for the year. So I think having that good structure as you start out is very important. Now, the problem, I think, with going straight to VAs is that somebody has to delegate all that all the time, or somebody has to create systems all the time. And I'm not against VAs. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like they come in play at a little bit later in a good business for certain parts of your business that are really good, like marketing or sales and marketing. I think they're very good there. I think they can help you in the admin part, and they even can help in the operations part. But do you really feel like you're okay with them being in charge of, let's just say your company grows to a $20 million company. Would you want that person to be in charge of that department? Probably not. So that's kind of where I feel like the structure and the mindset of who I want to hire, when I want to hire might change in some people's mind. I'm not against it. I see it happen a lot, but I really do believe that if you're going to transition from a solopreneur where it's just you and maybe 2 or 3 VAs to a real business, you have to start thinking of letting go of responsibility. Letting go of the vine is what is called in the book Traction, or in Rocket Fuel, or Get a Grip. Those 3 books outline what I've talked about, pretty good today. But you have to be willing to let go and let people make mistakes. Let people take control of parts of your business, and just trust them that they're going to do the right thing. Now, obviously, you've got to hold them accountable. You've got to reward them when they do good. But you have to be constantly thinking, I've got this, I'm going to create an empire. That's how I'm always thinking. I'm going to create an empire here. I don't want to start with a foundation that's going to give me a 1-bedroom house. I want to start with a foundation that's going to go deep, that's going to be strong, that's going to be able to build a skyscraper.
Has room to expand. What about for the people that are trying to figure that out, and they're worried they don't have the cash flow to support getting the right people? Do you eventually just take the step and build it, and they will come?
Well, I will definitely tell you there is an element of planning for success, and that's kind of what I talked about too in the beginning. A lot of times it's very easy, especially in the market that we're in right now, Jim. I'm telling you, there's so many people making so much money right now. I'll tell you, I would be very careful and cautious, because I think we only got about 2 or 3 years left of this.
You and I agree.
Awesome, massive expansion. I actually don't think we're going to have a dip in the next, 18 months like some people have said. I really believe that our next major crash is going to be 2022 or 2024. So I think we have at least 2 or 3, 4 years. I think we need to be looking at vacancy rate. We need to be looking at new construction starts as a key indicator on when that next, thing might happen. But that's a whole other good discussion again that we're getting off topic on. But I will tell you there is a part of that where, and again, an entrepreneur has to plan for the future. They always have to be looking for how do I create momentum and how do I keep this going long after I'm alive. You have to understand, alone you can go faster, but with a team you'll go farther. And that's always going to be the case. You're never going to be able to go as far and last as long as you will by yourself. You have to have a team around you that you trust, and there has to be other experts. There's no way you can be an expert at everything. As much as we think we can, there's just no way.
You don't want to be.
People are better than you are at almost everything, and once you realize that somebody else will have your back better than you will have your back most of the time we get ourselves in trouble. Why, Jim? Because we get ourselves in trouble. And we didn't have somebody else there telling us, no, we shouldn't do this. You should do this, Tom. And I actually realized this with my construction company over the last couple of years. And since I've put other people in charge, Christina comes to me about twice a week with a decision. And I turn around and I say, well, what do you think? And she says this. I said, there's your answer. I don't make decisions for her, ever. I might give her suggestions, but once I empowered her and gave her that, what I realized is that my whole team protects my butt way better than I would. And, that's super encouraging, but you've got to let go of that vine. You have to understand that they will do that, and you have to believe in them. And so I guess you just have to believe in what you're doing and believe it's going to work, I guess. And yeah, there's a little bit of faith with that. And, obviously there's a little bit of risk with that. But, you go back to my original illustration where, that solopreneur makes more money than the entrepreneur most of the time for the first 3 or 4 years. But then the solopreneur loses interest because they're just burnt out and they're just, why am I doing this? And I'm making $300,000 a year, but why? And they never can get any higher than that because, they don't have a team around them. But the other person, like I said, starts at 50 and then goes to 100 and then maybe 150. And maybe guess what? The next year they go back to 50 and then they go to 200. And then all of a sudden, oh, wow, year 5, year 6 comes around and you don't even realize what you don't realize. And then, at the end of the day, at the end of the year, you wake up and you get a humongous, gigantic tax bill. So, that's really how it works. And
okay, I want to go back to team just a little bit and talk about something that's a little unique to both you and I, because we both work with our wives also. Actually, you work with extended family. And I've always had family involved with my business. I mean, even setting up this podcast, my sister-in-law, Tracy, you worked with her. And you've met my wife, and Cheryl and I have met you and Becky, and I can't survive in my business without my wife, and it works out really well for us. Though every once in a while we got to get a little
I know your
space.
wife. I believe that to be true.
Yeah, and I know Becky, and it's the same thing. So when we're talking about team, talk about a little bit about the importance of having the buy-in from your family. And it reminds me that even today, like on my Facebook page, John Morey, who's in Alabama, posted on my timeline for some reason a little snippet about the importance of marriage in a financially successful life and business, and how important is that in your case as well?
Well, I would say it's very important. I'm definitely not a speaker that to maybe speak on that. I definitely will tell you that to me it's very important. What we found is that my wife was very successful. She was a general manager of a very successful cleaning company that had 32 employees, that was cleaning thousands of houses every single week. And wow. I basically ended up stealing her away from that company. I said, you know what, and actually she took a cut in pay to come work for us for the first year or year and a half or so. And I mean, it's been nothing but good. I mean, for me, you know, we take our kids to a private school, and so with me growing up, my dad worked tons of hours, and he never took us to school. It was just mom taking us to school. And, you know, for me to be able to, I never actually thought I'd have that opportunity. You know, me and my wife take our kids to school every day, and, you know, we get to do stuff like that. Me and my wife work together, so we get to see each other. And for some people, I know that might be, actually, I do think at a time in our marriage that may have been too much, you know, for us. But I think we're at a point now where we've been married for almost 20 years that it's a huge blessing for us to be able to spend more time with each other and, you know, to be able to, you know, do this together as two people yoked together in the same mission, not only in life, but also in business.
Oh, very well said. So when you were growing up, what school did you go to when you lived in Jamestown?
We went to our Christian school at our church, so Bible Baptist Academy, I think it was.
Very good.
I think I moved out of there when I was 9, and then I came and moved here.
Okay. Very, very good. And Cheryl and I met each other on the top of Camp Street, Tom, because Cheryl's dad's a pastor, and the church bought the parsonage next to my house, and that's what changed the trajectory of my entire life. So I just wanted to kind of go full circle. We're running out of time, so I wanted to kind of go back to our roots there a little bit for a minute and reminisce. But you and I are certainly both very, very blessed, and I really appreciate your doing the podcast with me today. We'll get you back on again.
I'd love to be back.
Do you have any final comments for everybody?
No, I would just say...
Let me ask you one last question, and then we'll close out. How important is it for you to be in the right room with the right people, and how does that impact your success by being in the right masterminds with the right people in particular?
Boy, when you talk about masterminds, you get so much more than just than just education. So if this is a mastermind question, I can't even begin to tell you how many millions of dollars that I feel like I will make because I was in masterminds. Masterminds serve many purposes, I think. I think, number one, masterminds can be a board of directors. I think kind of like an external board of directors to be able to bring ideas to that maybe you've been chomping at the bit, or new opportunities to them, and be able to ask them, hey, what do you think about this? Or, hey, well, I've been having this problem in my business. You know, everybody out there knows something that you don't know, and everybody is better at something than you are. So you can learn something from everybody. And with that, when you get not only in a room with just other people, period, but you get in another room with successful people or people that are in your business, it totally revolutionizes your life, I think, sometimes, because you're up in the front of the room and you're telling people, this is about my business, these are my challenges, and other people have gone through the exact same challenge and you have met, sometimes. And then when you're up in the room speaking, you get to teach other people your systems, and they're like, oh, my goodness, that is just amazing. I can't believe that somebody came up with that awesome new idea. And you're just thinking, oh, I've been doing this since I was 20 years old. So not only do you get to help people, but they help you. You also get to connect with people, and I think networking in the events is way more valuable than the education that you get with that. But you also get encouragement because we talk about being Christians and knowing what our why is in life, but the Bible is very clear about telling other people. What your problems are, telling other people, what you're going through is actually the biggest thing. It's an encouragement to everybody else, because everybody else is like, oh, I thought that guy was perfect. I thought that guy was awesome, but he has the same struggles that I have. And it's so encouraging to somebody else to be like, oh man, I thought I had a bad week, but man, that guy, he's really been through it. So you get encouragement, you get education, and you get connections. And those are probably the big three that I get, but you learn so much when you're in front of the room, but you learn from when other people in the front of the room teach you, but you also learn the comments back from everybody else in the room that they give the advice to the person. And you leave 2 days of something like that with your head spinning, just thinking to myself, I need a whole day just to kind of think about what I just saw. And, like I said, I've never left a mastermind without leaving with at least a $1 million idea.
Isn't it nice to get away from our business and work on our business instead of in our business every day too? And there's such power and synergy when you're with other people trying to grow their businesses, and I think it's amazing. So I'm really looking forward to our Investor Success Mastermind coming to your place at the end of July. I'm really excited for that. All right, Tom, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up and close out, but I really appreciate your being on with me. That's it for today's special episode of the Investor Success Podcast with my good friend Tom Olson. Again, my name is Jim Ingersoll, and I really love doing this podcast. It's been really great. I appreciate everybody's feedback. You can learn more about what we do in our Investor Success Mastermind at www.investorsuccessmastermind.com. And feel free to reach out to me anytime, Jim at investingnownetwork.com. If you're interested in Tom's upcoming Good Success meeting, go to Good Success. Good. Thank you. GoodSuccessAcademy.com and check it out. And or you can reach out to him on email via, what's your email, Tom?
T. Olson at Good Success.
So it's TOLSON at goodsuccess.com, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. All right, Tom, thanks again, and look forward to seeing you again, maybe in Dallas or maybe up in Chicago. But thank you so much for being on with us today. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends and social media contacts, and visit us online at www.bigmoneyinvestor.com.